And that's why you'll have 5, 6 times a day. And, oh, we won. It's over. No, it's going to go on forever. Total destruction. I'll never let them have the strait. Yes, we're giving up the strait. I'm getting out of NATO. We're staying in NATO. And when you know people in early dementia, that is exactly what they do. I think we're dealing with the madness of King George III here.
President Trump is failing right now. And so he's a man that's lashing out. I mean, after all, this is the man that threatened to wipe out an entire civilization of people. You can't respond to someone like that. They're mentally unstable.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I am sick of this shit. I'm sick of it. Can't he just behave like a normal human? I mean, honestly, like the president, 3D, yes, shut up. Fucking shut up about that shit.
Why can't this president or any president say no to Israel?
All of the people that you just heard from used to be some of Donald Trump's biggest boosters, and now it's a little bit surreal to see them say what everybody with common sense has been saying for more than a decade now, that Donald Trump is not mentally fit to be president of the United States. But I guess while he was swaying back and forth on the campaign trail to Ave Maria and pantomiming dick sucking with a microphone, they apparently didn't see any of the red flags that we all saw. But it goes further than that. They didn't just miss the red flags. They helped sell people on the delusions that he was espousing. They claimed that he won the 2020 election that he had lost. And listen, I'm pleased to see them oppose war with Iran. That's good. But Tucker Carlson in particular was seen with oil executives applauding Donald Trump at the White House for a job well done after he successfully kidnapped the president of Venezuela. But regardless if these people are dumb or disingenuous, it is objectively good that they are criticizing Donald Trump, because as former supporters of Donald Trump, they have more sway with Republicans than anyone else does. The problem is that the Republican base is a cult for all intents and purposes, and polls indicate that the GOP support for Trump seems to be pretty rock solid even after Iran and after the Epstein files and after the cuts to Medicaid. But putting aside the efficacy of their strategy, it's important for Trumpian ideologues to at least try to drive down support for him. But the main point that I want to drive home here is that the rest of us don't have to take them seriously. Perhaps Trump supporters might take them seriously because they're stupid, but the rest of us with common sense don't have to take them seriously. In fact, we shouldn't, because these people are partially responsible for the predicament that we're in right now, and no matter how much they wag their finger at Donald Trump, it'll never undo the damage caused by the man that they fought so hard to give power to. It'll always be a permanent stain on their sad, pathetic legacies for the rest of their sad, pathetic lives. So to prop these people up as oracles of wisdom, as some individuals are choosing to do, TYT, CNN, when they were embarrassingly wrong about everything, speaks to why our politics is so goddamn putrid. And we keep fucking doing this. Alyssa Slotkin, a former CIA and Bush administration official, is now hinting at plans to run for president of the Democratic Party. Sarah Longwell, a former Republican, told The Advocate that the Harris campaign's embrace of the Cheneys was a savvy political move because it created a permission structure for those older voters who were lifelong Republicans to vote for Harris. In the end, the strategy backfired spectacularly, and Harris ended up getting less votes from Republicans than Biden did in 2020, even though she courted them more than he did. But despite how wrong Longwell was, she's now publishing a book about how Democrats can win elections and demanding that the party reject left-wing figures like Hassan Piker. And at some point, we need to stop looking to former Republicans as beacons of wisdom, because if you're consistently wrong and responsible for the conditions that our country is currently in, you don't get to have a seat at the table. You have to go away, because you shouldn't be rewarded for fucking up, especially if you haven't undone the damage that you've caused. But no matter how wrong Republicans are, they always fail up. And no matter how right progressives and leftists are, they are never given a seat at the table. But to go back to Greene and Jones and, the Carlsons of the world, people of their ilk, if they can be rehabilitated by the rest of the public simply for being anti-Trump, then that means we really don't have any standards as a country. Now, I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case yet. It's too early to tell, because these people really are odious. They've shared some very disgusting beliefs. And when I say disgusting beliefs, I don't want to downplay it. We're talking about white supremacy. But I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if these people were rehabilitated and welcomed into the Democratic Party with open arms when you see how individuals like Neera Tanden are retweeting literal neo-Nazis like Nick Fuentes and manosphere dipshits like Sneeko simply because they're saying Orange Man bad. Like, this is somebody who shits on leftists at every chance that she gets, but the moment a Nazi says Trump bad, well, all of a sudden it's welcome to the resistance, Nick Fuentes and Sneeko. It just is so annoying, we'll say, as a leftist who really feels marginalized by this party. But to be fair, CNN did actually ask Marjorie Taylor Greene, to their credit, the question that we all want an answer to.
For critics of Trump, they're like, look, how can you say no one saw this coming? Obviously, calling for the death of a whole civilization is at a different level. But as Wolf mentioned earlier, Trump has been known for his bombastic rhetoric, right? He's been doing that for years. And you used to be a supporter. Now you're speaking out against him. But people might be asking, well, I mean, didn't you see this coming?
Well, I've always been a supporter of President Trump for the policies. That's what I cared about. But once he became president, he changed his policies. What we campaigned on was no more foreign wars. And President Trump said he was going to be the peace president. Well, he's gone from being the peace president to the war president. And I don't support that at all. I'm not offended oftentimes by people's words. I mean, people on the right and the left have lots of different types of language and statements. However, it's their actions that is what I pay attention to. And the president lost my support when he covered up the Epstein files and called me a traitor and wanted to primary me because I supported women that were raped at 16 and 18 years old, or 14 years old even. And I don't support the president in going to war in Iran. And what we campaigned on and what President Trump promised America was to put America first.
Okay. But the problem, Marjorie, is that you very clearly didn't pay attention to his actions because you have an entire first term to look to, which shows that he was never actually America first. He was Trump first. And with regard to foreign policy, he was extremely hawkish. He withdrew from the JCPOA, which made war with Iran much more likely. He then assassinated their general, Qasem Soleimani. He increased drone strikes by more than 400% and killed countless civilians, the first of which was an innocent little girl named Nawar al-Awlaki. He dropped the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan. He bombed Syria. And he solidified the Abraham Accords, which set the stage for October 7th. And if it sounds like I'm channeling my inner Kyle Kulinski here by going down that list, I am. But Kyle was one of many people sounding the alarm about the warning signs here. But as an American leftist, Kyle gets punished for being right too early, while people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Joe Kent and Carlson and others get rewarded for being wrong too late, even though they failed what was an open book test in supporting Donald Trump. And here we are, in an unwinnable war with Iran that we're entrenched in because Netanyahu exploited Trump's stupidity to the benefit of Israel. I say this because the New York Times just released a report detailing why Donald Trump ultimately decided to go to war with Iran, and unsurprisingly, it was because he was duped by Netanyahu. They explained that in a Situation Room meeting with Netanyahu, Trump was convinced by him that regime change in Iran would be easy peasy, and Netanyahu claimed that they would be too weak to close the Strait of Hormuz, and on top of that, he also claimed that Mossad agents would foment a rebellion among the population of Iran, and that would also help to usher in regime change, and Trump responded to Netanyahu's presentation saying, "Sounds good to me." And it didn't matter that his own cabinet called some of the claims that Netanyahu made, quote, bullshit, as Marco Rubio did, and, warned him that the Israelis always oversell their underdeveloped plans. It didn't matter because Trump was already convinced to go to war with Iran because he believed Netanyahu when he said it would be easy. And since kidnapping Maduro was a success as well, why wouldn't war with Iran also be a success? Because Donald Trump thinks like a child because his brain is very clearly underdeveloped and he never matured emotionally, not to mention he's also in cognitive decline due to dementia or Alzheimer's. So, of course, it was easy to convince him that he looked like some sort of action star badass by bombing a country that didn't attack us and posed no threat to us. So he gave the go-ahead, and the rest is history. Now, Netanyahu has given a variation of this same exact pitch to every other American president, and he's been trying to goad the United States into a war with Iran for decades. But do you want to know why people like myself and Kyle Kulinski and others thought that war with Iran was possible under a Trump more so than any other president, in spite of his sporadic anti-war rhetoric here and there? Because I actually paid attention to what he did in his first term. And more importantly, it was obvious to me that Trump was actually stupid and indecisive enough from the get-go to go along with what foreign leaders say because they are smarter than him and he is dumber than them. But Alex Jones is suddenly surprised that he keeps changing his mind day to day and moment to moment when he's always been this way. Yet, Alex Jones went to bat for this motherfucker. He was lying about the election being stolen, and he got what he wanted. He got Trump back into power, and now he's having to lie in the bed that he made. In fact, we're all having to lie in the bed that he made. But with regard to Israel, there really were no great options in the last election, to be honest. Joe Biden was complicit with Israel's genocide, and Kamala Harris made it clear that she wasn't going to break with Israel. But having said that, there were so many indications that Trump would be worse than the Biden administration, again, because of his actions in his first term. He moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He approved the Abraham Accords, and more importantly, he took more than $100 million from pro-Israel billionaires like Miriam Adelson on the condition that he allows Israel to annex the entire West Bank, which is something that they're in the process of doing. Not to mention, it's not unreasonable to entertain the possibility that Israel might have some blackmail on Trump from the Epstein files, given evidence linking Jeffrey Epstein to Mossad. That's unconfirmed. It's conjecture on my part, but I wouldn't be surprised given how Netanyahu, according to Dropsite News, basically did the same thing to Bill Clinton. And Trump's closeness to Israel, it poses a legitimate national security threat because after Trump announced the ceasefire with Iran, Israel immediately sabotaged that agreement by escalating attacks on Lebanon, and they went on to commit what will now go down as the April 8th massacre, where they bombed 100 different sites in 10 minutes, killing around 250 people in what The Guardian described as the deadliest 10 minutes in decades, which made the ceasefire null and void like that. So Trump was stupid enough to get roped into this war by Israel in the first place, and now he's too stupid to get out of the war because Israel is trying to keep him entrenched in the war. Although, to be fair to Donald Trump, he did ask Netanyahu to scale back his attacks on Lebanon, and Israel agreed to be a helpful partner. So, we'll see whether or not that's actually the case. But if it isn't, does anyone expect Donald Trump to actually hold Israel accountable if they don't comply? Of course not, because before he politely asked his partner in crime to not undermine his negotiations, he was lying for Israel about Lebanon not being included in the deal when we know it was included. Otherwise, Iran wouldn't have agreed to a ceasefire in the first place. But in the event Trump does manage to somehow find a way to get out of this quagmire that he created for himself, don't think that that's the end of it, because again, he is stupid. And even if the war with Iran comes to an end, he tweeted that the U.S. military is already gearing up for his next military conquest. That's his words, not mine. Now, we don't know where that'll be. It might be in Cuba. It could even be in the Vatican City, given how the Pentagon reportedly threatened the Pope, telling the Vatican's U.S. representative, America has the military power to do whatever it wants in the world, and the Catholic Church had better take its side. So anything is on the table because the president is an emotionally stunted baboon-brained narcissist with untreated mental illness and dementia, and had more people thought about whether or not somebody like that would create instability in the world, maybe we wouldn't be in this predicament. Had people like Alex Jones and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, as well as others, taken his cock out of their mouths for like 2 seconds to try to objectively gauge whether or not he was qualified to have all of this power, maybe things would have turned out a little bit different. So I don't know what's next for, the people who were wrong, but when the Trump era is over and they're no longer useful, these people need to fuck off forever. And I mean forever. And I have to say that because I can't not think that they're trying to use their criticism of Trump as like some sort of launching pad for a presidential run or some other shit that they want to do, when anyone else would hide their faces in shame for being so colossally fucking wrong. But I mean, why would they do that when we essentially have a reverse meritocracy in America, where the biggest idiots in the country are more likely than not to fail up than the people with actual intelligence and foresight?
Beautiful, beautiful, I will eat your ass. Beautiful, gay, beautiful,
tremendous, 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 tremendous.